If you could discover the most intimate secrets about how the masculine mind expresses true desire, would that completely change how you interpret the men in your life? What if I told you that Carl Jung spent decades studying the hidden psychology of masculine desire and uncovered 5 unmistakable signs that reveal when a man truly wants you, not just physically, but on the deepest psychological level? Before I reveal these life-changing insights, please subscribe to the channel and leave your like. This information could transform how you understand men forever, and I want to make sure you don't miss any of the psychological wisdom we share here. Now let me ask you something deeply personal. Have you ever felt confused by a man's mixed signals? Have you ever wondered if his interest was genuine or just surface-level attraction? If you've ever questioned whether a man truly desires you or is simply playing games, you're about to discover something that will give you clarity like never before. Jung understood something that most people miss completely. True masculine desire isn't just about physical attraction. It's not about the obvious signs that everyone talks about. Real desire, the kind that comes from the depths of a man's psyche, manifests in ways that are far more subtle, far more profound, and absolutely impossible to fake. The problem is that most women have been taught to look for the wrong signs. They focus on surface behaviors, on what men say, on obvious gestures of interest. But Jung discovered that the masculine psyche operates on much deeper levels. When a man truly desires you, his unconscious mind reveals itself in ways he doesn't even realize. Think about this for a moment. How many times have you been with a man who said all the right things, who seemed interested, who acted like he cared but something felt off? Your intuition was telling you that despite his words and actions, something deeper was missing. Jung would say your intuition was absolutely correct. You see, Jung spent years analyzing the masculine psyche, and he discovered that true desire creates specific psychological patterns that cannot be hidden or faked. When a man genuinely desires you on a soul level, his entire being shifts in ways that are unmistakable once you know what to look for. But here's what's fascinating. Most women never learn to recognize these signs because they're not taught in our culture. We're taught to look for flowers, compliments, attention, and romantic gestures, but Jung understood that these surface behaviors can be performed by any man, regardless of his true feelings. The 5 signs Jung identified go much deeper. They reveal what's happening in a man's unconscious mind when he encounters a woman who truly captivates him. These signs emerge from the deepest parts of his psyche, from places he cannot consciously control or manipulate. The first hidden sign is what Jung called unconscious mirroring of your energy. When a man truly desires you, something remarkable happens to his nervous system. He begins to unconsciously match your emotional rhythms, your breathing patterns, even your subtle movements. This isn't conscious mimicry. This is his psyche attempting to create harmony with yours at the deepest level. You'll notice this when you're together. If you speak softly, he naturally lowers his voice. If you lean forward, he mirrors the movement without thinking. If your energy is calm, his becomes peaceful. If you're excited, his energy rises to match yours. This happens because true desire creates what Jung called psychic resonance between 2 people. But here's the key. This mirroring happens automatically, without his conscious awareness. A man who's just trying to impress you might consciously copy some of your behaviors, but unconscious mirroring is different. It's seamless, natural, and happens even when he's not paying attention to what he's doing. Watch for this the next time you're with a man you're wondering about. Notice if his body naturally synchronizes with yours. Does he unconsciously match your pace when you walk together? Does his breathing slow down when yours does? This kind of deep mirroring only happens when a man's psyche is genuinely drawn to yours. The second sign Jung identified is even more revealing. It's what he called protective instinct activation. When a man truly desires you, something ancient awakens in his masculine psychology. His protective instincts don't just turn on, they become hyperactive in your presence. This goes far beyond obvious protectiveness. Yes, he might want to walk on the street side of the sidewalk, or offer to carry heavy things for you, but Jung discovered that true protective instinct manifests in much more subtle ways. You'll notice he becomes acutely aware of your comfort in every situation. He notices if you're cold before you mention it. He's aware of whether you feel safe in different environments. He pays attention to how other people treat you and responds if anyone makes you uncomfortable. His radar for your well-being becomes incredibly sensitive. But here's what makes this sign so powerful. This protective awareness extends to your emotional state as well. A man who truly desires you will notice subtle changes in your mood, energy, or stress levels. He'll ask if you're okay when you haven't said anything is wrong. He'll sense when you need space or when you need support. This happens because true desire activates what Jung called the anima in a man's psyche. The anima is the feminine aspect of his unconscious mind, and when it's activated by genuine attraction to you, it makes him incredibly attuned to your inner world. The third hidden sign is perhaps the most beautiful. Jung called it future projection inclusion. When a man truly desires you, his unconscious mind begins automatically including you in his future mental images. This isn't about him making plans with you or talking about the future. This is about something much deeper happening in his psyche. You'll notice this in subtle ways. He'll mention things that are months away and naturally assume you'll be part of them. He'll talk about places he wants to visit someday and unconsciously use the word we instead of I. He'll discuss his goals and dreams in ways that naturally include your presence. This happens because true desire doesn't just exist in the present moment. When a man's psyche is genuinely drawn to you, it begins to imagine a future where you're an integral part of his life. His unconscious mind starts weaving you into his long-term vision of himself. But pay attention to how natural this feels when it happens. A man who's just trying to keep you interested might consciously make future plans or talk about someday scenarios. But unconscious future inclusion feels effortless and organic. It's as if his mind can't imagine a future without you in it. The fourth sign Jung discovered is what he termed authentic vulnerability emergence. This is completely different from a man sharing personal information to create intimacy or bond with you. This is about something much more profound happening in his psychological defenses. When a man truly desires you, his natural psychological armor begins to soften in your presence. Not because he's trying to be vulnerable, but because something in his psyche recognizes you as safe. His unconscious mind begins to trust you in ways that he might not even be aware of consciously. You'll see this in moments when he forgets to maintain his usual image or persona. He might share fears he doesn't usually admit to having. He might express doubts about himself that he normally keeps hidden. He might show you sides of his personality that he doesn't reveal to others. But here's the crucial difference. This vulnerability doesn't feel performed or strategic. It emerges naturally, often surprising him as much as it surprises you. It's as if being around you creates a psychological environment where his deepest self feels safe to emerge. Jung understood that this kind of authentic vulnerability only happens when a man's psyche recognizes a woman as someone who could truly understand and accept his complete self. It's his unconscious mind's way of testing whether you're someone he could be completely real with. The fifth and most powerful sign Jung identified is what he called energetic investment amplification. This goes far beyond a man putting effort into the relationship or trying to impress you. This is about something happening at the level of his life force energy. When a man truly desires you, being around you doesn't drain his energy. It amplifies it. You'll notice that after spending time with you, he seems more alive, more vibrant, more himself than usual. This happens because true desire creates what Jung called energetic synergy between two people. You become a source of inspiration and vitality for him, not because you're trying to be, but because something in your essence resonates with something deep in his psyche. He'll often tell you that he feels more motivated, more creative, more optimistic when he's been with you. But here's what makes this sign unmistakable. This energetic amplification happens consistently, not just during romantic moments or when things are going well. Even during ordinary conversations or mundane activities, your presence seems to elevate his entire state of being. This is Jung's most reliable indicator of true desire because it cannot be faked or manufactured. A man might be able to act interested, say the right things, or even perform vulnerability, but he cannot fake the deep, energetic response that happens when his psyche is genuinely drawn to someone. Now, you might be wondering why these signs are so different from what you've been taught to look for. Jung understood that most relationship advice focuses on surface behaviors that can be easily manipulated or misinterpreted. But these 5 signs emerge from the unconscious mind, from parts of the masculine psyche that operate below the level of conscious control. Understanding these 5 signs is just the beginning. Now we need to explore how to recognize them in real-life situations and, perhaps more importantly, how to distinguish them from their superficial counterparts. Because Jung also discovered that many men unconsciously mimic these behaviors without genuine desire. either because they want something from you or because they've learned that these behaviors get positive responses from women. The key to using Jung's insights effectively lies in understanding the difference between conscious performance and unconscious expression. When a man truly desires you, these 5 signs emerge naturally and consistently. When he's performing or manipulating, the signs will feel forced, inconsistent, or somehow off to your intuition. Let's dive deeper into how each sign manifests in everyday interactions. With unconscious mirroring, pay attention to the quality of the synchronization. Genuine mirroring feels effortless and happens even when he's distracted or focused on something else. If you notice him consciously watching your movements and then copying them, that's performance, not genuine psychic resonance. True mirroring also happens across multiple contexts. You'll see it when you're walking together, sitting in a restaurant, having serious conversations, or just relaxing. The man who genuinely desires you will unconsciously sync with your energy, whether you're dressed up for a special occasion or wearing sweatpants on a lazy Sunday. Jung also noted that genuine mirroring includes emotional states, not just physical movements. A man who truly desires you will unconsciously match your emotional rhythm. If you're feeling contemplative, his energy will naturally become more reflective. If you're playful, his mood will lighten without him having to think about it. The protective instinct activation becomes more complex when you understand its psychological roots. Jung discovered that this instinct emerges from what he called the anima activation in the masculine psyche. When a man's anima is awakened by genuine attraction to you, it creates an almost psychic awareness of your needs and comfort levels. You'll notice this in situations where he responds to needs you haven't even expressed yet. He'll offer you his jacket before you mention being cold. He'll suggest leaving a crowded place because he senses you're feeling overwhelmed, even though you haven't said anything. He'll remember details about things that stress you and proactively help you avoid those situations. But here's what's crucial to understand. This protective awareness extends to protecting your emotional well-being, not just your physical comfort. A man who truly desires you will be sensitive to how other people's words or actions affect you. He'll notice if someone's comment hurt your feelings, even if you're trying to hide it. He'll be aware of situations that might trigger your insecurities and either help you avoid them or support you through them. This is very different from possessive or controlling behavior. Genuine protective instinct respects your autonomy while caring for your well-being. It's about creating safety for you to be yourself, not about controlling your choices or limiting your freedom. The future projection inclusion sign requires careful observation because it's easy to confuse with conscious future planning. When a man is consciously trying to keep you interested, he might talk about future plans or make promises about someday scenarios. But unconscious future inclusion is different. You'll hear it in casual comments where he naturally assumes your presence in future situations. He might say something like, "when we're older," without having consciously decided to include you in his long-term vision. He'll mention wanting to show you places he's never been, as if it's obvious that you'll be there to experience them with him. Jung noted that this sign often appears in a man's language before he's consciously aware of how deeply he feels about you. His unconscious mind begins weaving you into his future narrative because at the deepest level, he cannot imagine that future without you. But pay attention to how consistent this is across different types of future scenarios. Does he include you in his casual weekend plans and also in his major life goals? Does he naturally assume your presence in both fun adventures and challenging situations? True future projection inclusion happens across all areas of his imagined future, not just the pleasant ones. The authentic vulnerability emergence is perhaps the most misunderstood of Jung's 5 signs. In our culture, many people believe that sharing personal information equals vulnerability. But Jung understood that true vulnerability is about the dropping of psychological defenses, not just the sharing of facts about oneself. When a man truly desires you, you'll witness moments when his usual persona simply dissolves. He might express uncertainty about decisions he normally appears confident about. He might admit to fears or insecurities that he typically keeps hidden. He might show you aspects of his personality that don't match his public image. The key indicator is that this vulnerability surprises him as much as it surprises you. You'll often see a moment of recognition in his eyes, as if he's thinking, "I can't believe I just shared that with you." This happens because his unconscious mind recognizes you as psychologically safe before his conscious mind has made that decision. True vulnerability also includes what Jung called shadow revelation. Every person has aspects of themselves they prefer to keep hidden, parts of their personality they're not proud of or comfortable with. When a man truly desires you, he'll unconsciously begin revealing these shadow aspects, not because he wants to burden you with his flaws, but because something in his psyche trusts that you can see his complete self and still accept him. This is very different from a man who strategically shares weaknesses to appear more human or relatable. Strategic vulnerability feels calculated and often focuses on safe weaknesses that actually make him seem more appealing. Authentic vulnerability feels raw and unplanned, and it includes aspects of himself that he's genuinely uncertain about revealing. The energetic investment amplification is Jung's most reliable sign because it cannot be consciously controlled or faked. When a man truly desires you, your presence literally energizes him at a cellular level. This happens because true attraction creates what Jung called psychic resonance that enhances both people's life force energy. You'll notice that conversations with him feel effortless and energizing for both of you. Time seems to pass quickly when you're together because you're both in what psychologists now call a flow state. He'll often comment that he feels more like himself when he's with you, or that being around you inspires him to be better. But here's the crucial test. This energetic amplification happens even during difficult conversations or challenging situations. A man who truly desires you will find that even working through problems together feels energizing rather than draining. This is because the connection itself is nourishing to his psyche, regardless of the specific content of your interactions. Jung also noted that this energetic effect extends beyond your direct interactions. A man who truly desires you will often find that thinking about you or anticipating seeing you gives him energy and motivation in other areas of his life. You become a source of inspiration that affects his work, his creativity, his relationships with others. Now let's address something crucial. Jung understood that recognizing these signs is only valuable if you also understand what they mean for you and your choices. These signs don't just tell you whether a man desires you, they reveal whether his desire comes from a place of genuine appreciation for who you are, or from neediness, fantasy, or superficial attraction. When all 5 signs are present consistently, Jung believed you're witnessing what he called anima projection in its highest form. This means the man is not just attracted to your physical appearance or even your personality traits. His psyche recognizes something in you that resonates with his deepest self. You represent something his soul has been seeking. But Jung also warned about the shadow side of these signs. Sometimes a man might display these behaviors not because he genuinely desires you, but because he's projecting his anima onto you in an unhealthy way. The difference lies in whether he sees you as a real person with your own needs, desires, and autonomy, or whether he's relating to his fantasy of who you are. Healthy anima projection enhances your authentic self. You feel more beautiful, more intelligent, more creative when you're with him because he genuinely sees and appreciates these qualities in you. Unhealthy anima projection feels suffocating or unrealistic. You feel pressure to maintain an image that doesn't feel authentic to who you really are. Jung's insights also reveal something important about your own psychology. If you find yourself constantly questioning whether a man truly desires you, if you're always looking for signs and reassurance, Jung would say this reveals something about your relationship with your own self-worth. A woman who truly knows her own value doesn't need to constantly decode men's behavior to feel secure. She recognizes these signs when they're present, but she doesn't desperately search for them or try to convince herself they exist when they don't. The most empowering aspect of Jung's discoveries is that they help you distinguish between men who are genuinely drawn to your authentic self and men who are attracted to an image or fantasy. When you understand these 5 signs, you can make choices based on reality rather than hope, projection, or wishful thinking. Remember, true desire is not something you can create, manipulate, or convince someone to feel. It either exists or it doesn't. Jung's 5 signs simply help you recognize when it's genuinely present so you can respond accordingly. If you're with a man who consistently displays all 5 signs, you're experiencing something rare and valuable. Jung believed that this kind of deep psychic resonance between 2 people creates the foundation for the most fulfilling relationships possible. If you're with a man who displays some of these signs inconsistently or who performs surface versions of these behaviors, Jung would encourage you to trust your intuition about what's real and what's performance. And if you're with a man who displays none of these signs, Jung would say his psyche is simply not resonating with yours at the deepest level. This doesn't mean there's anything wrong with either of you. It just means you're not energetically compatible in the way that creates lasting, fulfilling connection. The goal isn't to find any man who desires you. The goal is to recognize when you've found a man whose desire comes from genuine appreciation for your authentic self. Jung's 5 signs help you make that distinction with clarity and confidence. Trust your intuition, honor your worth, and remember that true desire recognizes true value. When you encounter a man whose psyche genuinely resonates with yours, these 5 signs will be unmistakable, and when you recognize them, you'll know you've found something worth exploring. If this resonated with you, share in the comments which of these 5 signs you've experienced or which one surprised you the most. Subscribe for more insights into the psychology of relationships and human connection. And remember, you deserve someone whose desire for you comes from the deepest, most authentic place in their psyche.